Hi guys, this is Matercontrol. Today I'm going to be showing you a new deck that I've been tinkering with for a couple of weeks. It is Dralnu, the Lich Lord. Now this guy is 5 mana, he's Dimir. If you would be dealt damage, you sacrifice that many permanents. If you tap him, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard has flashback, which means you can play it from your graveyard for its cost, and then it gets exiled after you play it from the graveyard. So you might be asking, why am I using this guy? Well, I know that Sig is probably a little better, the 2-cost guy that draws you cards, and the Biting Gale might be a little better in French EDH. But I find on MTGO, because you have a 40 life total instead of a 30, and because things like Soul Ring and Mana Crypt are legal, Dralnu becomes much more viable. With regards to his deterrent, having damage dealt to him makes you sacrifice permanents. In all my games that I've played with him, I've never had that happen. I think that his ability is far too powerful to overlook, and the pros definitely outweigh the cons. If he does get hit by damage and you have to sacrifice permanents, then you've just lost one game out of 50. This guy's so good, and if he gets hit, you deserve to lose. I mean, if you cast him against a red deck or without any counters, then I fully expect I would fully expect him to get hit. Saying that, usually I cast Dralnu as a finisher. Like, I don't cast him at 5 mana just to get him out there, just to see what happens. I'll cast him when my board is secure. So, this is my game with him against the Sliver Overlord. Sliver Overlord is pretty standard, 7/7, 5 color mana. It searches for slivers, and it also gains control of slivers. So, my opponent is going first. My hand, it has Coercive Portal in it and Mishra's Workshop, so I keep it with hopes of getting Coercive Portal out on the second turn. So he puts a check land in. I top deck a land, which is nice. He puts all slivers get +1/+1. So at this point I'm not too scared because I figure it's just a ordinary sliver deck. Usually I'm not very afraid of sliver decks. They're okay. I would never call them competitive. Even if you pimp one out, you're still basing your deck on tribal aggro. So I put Coercive Portal down. He puts another sliver that bumps up slivers. Here I draw Thran Dynamo, which I'm pretty happy to see. Of course, with Mishra's Workshop, it basically costs 2 mana. Thran Dynamo. And then I Merchant Scroll. I Merchant Scroll here for a Mystical Tutor. Because I'm playing a control deck, I find that most times I have to, well, with aggro decks, you have to get an early turn board wipe. So I go for Mystical Tutor with intentions of next turn just getting Toxic Deluge. He brainstorms. Puts a sliver that makes slivers tap for mana, and then he drops Necropotence with 2 cards in his hand. So now I'm sort of in a tight spot. He draws 5 cards. I missed the tutor here for Toxic Deluge still. Now, when he dropped Necropotence, I wasn't too afraid. I mean, Necropotence is one of the best cards in the game when you get it out. He's running it in a 5-color deck, which I find is a little bit greedy. But of course, when you get it out, it really works for you. But I have Fabricate in hand. So, I don't do it this turn, but I talked to Deluge's board away. He just drops some slivers. And he kills my Coercive Portal, which is a pretty good move. Okay. The reason I played Toxic Deluge that early was because I knew I had Yawgmoth's Will and I could just replay it again when I needed it. But this is the sort of the big turn. Fabricate 4, you guessed it, Winter Orb. I'm pretty glad he tapped out on his turn. Well, I take an extra turn so I could play Winter Orb. With all my mana untapped. Yeah, Winter Orb, there we go. Then a Yawgmoth's Will, back my Toxic Deluge. So now he has 7 cards in his hand and no board. And I have Coercive Portal out and Thran Dynamo, so I'm in a pretty good position. So he puts colorless Sliver down, which actually comes in handy. Sorry, it's Sliver that turns all other Slivers colorless, which actually comes in handy for him later on. Top deck, Factor Fiction and Jace, so I'm pretty happy to see those. I passed the turn with intentions of just playing Factor Fiction on his turn. Draws cards, draws cards. Okay, so I Factor Fiction here. The split is pretty good. He puts Ugin and Teferi in one pile, and then the rest in another. I can understand how he doesn't want me to cast Damnation, because that's how he's going to win with creatures out, but I opted to take Ugin and Teferi because Ugin basically acts as a board wipe for his board, and Teferi with Winter Orb out is just bananas. It's insane. Well, that's why I have it in here. So I of course take Ugin and Teferi. I top deck this little gem, which my buddy just convinced me to add. Phyrexian Metamorph. So I copy my Thran Dynamo. He attacks me. Okay. Draws cards, draws cards. And I got Force here, which is sort of nice. So, put out Teferi. With Teferi, I put out Ugin. Teferi's insane. I still have 2 mana up for Counterspell. Still under Winter Orb. And I opt to kill his colorless Sliver, because if I tried to board wipe here, with Ugin's minus ability, I would have only gotten Necropotence. It wouldn't have hit the Slivers. Put some Slivers out. The first one I can counter, I choose not to. The second one I can't counter. But at this point, he's just throwing Slivers into Ugin's ability. And then he goes for Vampiric Tutor here, which I do counter. I don't know what it is, but with 2 more counterspells in hand, I have the luxury of not finding out what it is. So he attacks Teferi, probably the right play. Just so I can minus. Then he gets a bunch of cards in his hand. So at this point, it's pretty much a mop-up job. Like I said, with 2 counters in my hand, and I just top deck Tezzeret. It's academic. So untap, Tezzeret down. Some more untapping, clears board with Ugin. Untap, just do some stuff, get Jace, and then time stretch off the top, which I was going to cast next turn. Alright guys, this is the 3rd game I had against Sliver Overlord. In the 2nd game, I took a bad keep, and I had 1 mana, and he just stomped me. It was embarrassing. This 3rd game highlights the power of Dralnu a little later in the game. So, I have Teferi, Merchant Scroll, Snapcaster, Coercive Portal in my hand. So with Worn Power Stone and Coercive Portal, I opt to keep. I love Coercive Portal, I can't say it enough. And then, of course, I top deck the Soul Ring. So that makes my hand 2 turns faster. So instead of putting down Worn Power Stone this turn, I just slam down Corrosive Portal because I need that extra draw. Get some lands. Destroys Corrosive Portal, so I think I got one draw off it, which, you know, I guess is okay. 1 for 1. 2 for 1 because he used something to destroy it. Put down Coalition Relic, and then I put down Worn Power Stone. So this is turn 3, and on my next turn I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 mana. So this is usually how the deck is supposed to run. I do have a lot of artifacts in it to get some of my bigger spells out, like some of my Time Walk like abilities. And then when I use Dralnu's Flashback, you know, I can profit from them. Now in a French like 1v1 tournament, I don't think this deck would be viable because it just uses too much ramp spells and too much sort of heavy good stuff. But on MTGO it rocks. So he has 3 mana up. I'm not really afraid of a counter because in Sliver decks I just don't see very many counters. I tap 4 permanents. And then Merchant Scroll here for Mystical Tutor. Now, it was my intention to get Mind Twist with this Mystical Tutor. That was my tutor chain idea. And he puts down Quick Sliver, which makes all the slivers have haste, and he brainstorms. So he puts down Mana Vault, which I'm not too afraid of. And because he doesn't put very many slivers down, I don't have to go for Toxic Deluge here. And I just go for Mind Twist. I sort of expected him to drop a sliver while I was Mind Twisting him, because he has Flash on his slivers, but he didn't. So I'm glad I paid the 4 mana here to get rid of all his cards. And there goes his hand. So I use Teferi's +1 ability because I can't really do anything with this mana. I could Dig Through Time, but I could also just delve away my graveyard with Dig Through Time. I would have liked to have Snapcaster into Mystical Tutor, but I decided the delve was a little more important, just because I need to get some cards here. He doesn't have a hand, obviously. I just destroyed it, and I decided to keep Tamiyo. I went for Tamiyo because right now I just want to go for Resource Denial instead of, I guess, Counterspell. It probably would have been a good play to keep Counterspell as well, but you'll see Tamiyo come into play this game. Alright, so he hits me. Or Teferi. Here I go for Dig Through Time. So I see Vampiric Tutor, a bunch of other stuff, and then Damnation. So because he's running an aggro deck, I take the Damnation, and the Vampiric Tutor I can't overlook. So I keep Damnation, Vampiric Tutor. And he puts down his Sliver Overlord on my end step. Probably would have been better to do that on his end step. He's probably afraid of a counterspell here, which I completely understand because he's seen that I have counterspells in my deck. So I'm pretty happy I kept the Damnation at this point. On my upkeep, I Vampiric Tutor for him to 2-arc because he has 3 mana here that he can pump in his Sliver Overlord's ability, but he won't have enough mana to play whatever he goes for. So Damnation. He goes for the Sliver that makes everything indestructible. Get him to discard it. And I have enough mana to drop Tamiyo. So I just lock down his command tower. So now he has 2 cards in his hand and 4 available mana. I only have 1 card in my hand, but I'm not too worried. I mean, I have Snapcaster for Vampiric if I want to draw a spell. And he drops a land. that's exactly what I do. I Snapcaster, Appear Tutor, go for Necropotence, and draw 7 cards for 3 mana. Okay, so my hand right now is a pretty good example of my main strategy here. I have 2 ramp artifacts, 2 stones. I have mana, Yawgmoth's Will to recur whatever I want, so that includes Damnation, just in case his deck gets out of hand. And I have Future Sight to generate card advantage. So you put some Sliver Overlord. I'm not too afraid because I have enough mana to take 2 extra turns. So that is what I do. Opt not to attack, tap down his stuff. So now I'm just building some real estate. Put Colony Gem down. Now this is a perfect example of when I would actually want to use Dralnu. He doesn't have a board. He has 1 creature. It's safe to bring Dralnu out, and just like I said earlier in the video, I use him primarily as a finisher. So I get him out. And this is, of course, with the intention of next turn time stretching again. So I see Demonic Tutor off the top. Pretty happy to see that. Flashback time stretch. Untap my stuff. Now this is pretty cool. I skipped through it quickly there, but with the fairy, his -1 is untap up to 4 target permanents. So I untapped my general. So I'm Demonic Tutoring twice this turn. So right here, I think I just went for Ugin. Start putting on some pressure. And then I went for Karn. Karn would just get rid of his Sliver. I do need another Time Walk here, just so I can keep the chain going. But I decided, in case my Time Walks stop, I'll have an answer to whatever he has. And with Karn on the boards, and him drawing 1 card a turn, he has to have something pretty magnificent to break out of the lock that I'm creating. Like an Aether, not Aether Snap, what is that card? Maybe it's called Aether Snap. Just takes counters and tokens off of everything. So, my turn again. So I'm able to drop Ugin and Karn. And Future Sight. And have a counter in my hand. I pop Tamiyo for her emblem, and I still have a Tamiyo up. So that just it's a lock. Not necessarily, it's not a hard lock with Mana Leak. I see Temporal Manipulation on top, so I cast it with the intention of flashing it back to Dralnu, and he sees the writing on the wall. I just had too much advantage here. So that is exactly how my Dralnu deck is supposed to play out. It gets a lot of hate online, but this guy was a gentleman. He actually had probably one of the best Sliver decks I've ever seen, which isn't saying much, but it was still a fun match.